The war fleet of the Crythian Empire hung in the darkness between stars like a collection of silver daggers. 300 warships moved as one, their engines barely visible against the cosmic background. Inside the command vessel, Commander Jaltor studied the holographic display before him with satisfaction. Target world confirmed, his navigation officer announced. Coordinates match the survey data. Exactly. Jaltor examined the blue and green planet rotating slowly in the projection. It looked unremarkable. His claws tapped against the command console as he reviewed the intelligence reports once more. The data was clear. This world had primitive satellite networks, scattered military installations, and no unified planetary defense system. The inhabitants had barely ventured beyond their own moon. They still relied on chemical propulsion for their spacecraft. Another easy conquest, muttered his second-in-command, General Vexnar. Why did High Command even send such a large fleet? Standard procedure for all new acquisitions, Jaltor replied. Though I agree this seems excessive. These creatures have not even achieved faster than light travel. They are isolated, ignorant of the greater galaxy. They will surrender quickly, once they understand our superiority. The Crythian Empire had conquered 47 species across the spiral arm. Each conquest followed the same pattern. Initial show of force, destruction of military capability, demand for surrender. Most civilizations submitted within days. A few required weeks of orbital bombardment before their leaders accepted reality. None had ever successfully resisted. Begin the operation, Jaltor commanded. The fleet surged forward, crossing the distance to the target world in moments. They emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation above the planet. Jaltor felt the familiar surge of anticipation. Another world would kneel before the Empire. Another species would learn their place in the natural order. Deploy communication jammers, he ordered. Target all military installations and satellite networks. I want them blind and deaf before they understand what is happening. The weapons systems of 300 ships fired simultaneously. Bright lances of energy reached down from orbit, striking with precision across the planet's surface. Military bases erupted in flames. Communication satellites disintegrated into clouds of debris. The planet's orbital infrastructure shattered in minutes. Below, cities went dark. Power grids failed. Emergency sirens wailed across continents as billions of inhabitants looked up at the night sky and saw death hanging above them. Minimal resistance detected, reported the tactical officer. A few primitive missiles launched. Our defense systems neutralized them easily. Some aircraft attempting to reach orbital altitude. None pose a threat. Jaltor watched the displays as panic spread across the planet. Perfect. Fear would make them compliant. He had seen this dozens of times before. Send the first wave, he commanded. Begin with their major population centers. I want ground forces establishing control in their capital cities. Within the hour, thousands of dropships launched from the fleet, descending through the atmosphere like a swarm of metal locusts. They carried elite Crythian shock troops, warriors who had conquered worlds across the sector. Each soldier was equipped with powered armor, energy weapons, and complete confidence in their superiority. The first dropships landed in cities across the planet. The doors opened and Crythian soldiers emerged, weapons ready. They expected to find terrified crowds, government officials, desperate to negotiate, military forces ready to lay down arms. Instead, they found chaos. In some cities, the inhabitants fled in panic. In others, they attacked with primitive projectile weapons that sparked harmlessly off Crythian armor. In a few locations, organized military units engaged the invaders with coordinated fire. It was disorganized, confused, and completely ineffective against superior technology. Jaltor received reports from across the planet. Ground forces encountering resistance, but nothing significant. The inhabitants are fighting in small groups with inadequate weapons. Several cities secured. Local governments attempting to establish communication. some attempting evacuation of civilian populations. Send them our terms, Jaltor said. Unconditional surrender. Complete submission to imperial authority. We will accept their compliance within 24 standard hours. After that, we begin systematic bombardment until they learn sense. The message was broadcast on every frequency the inhabitants used, translated into their various languages, made crystal clear. Submit or face annihilation. But as night fell over the occupied cities, something unexpected began to happen. The inhabitants did not surrender. Instead, they vanished into their own cities, like water seeping into sand. When Crithian patrols moved through the streets, they found them empty, silent. The inhabitants had gone to ground. Then the attacks began. A squad of Crithian soldiers turned a corner and triggered an improvised explosive. 3 died instantly. Another patrol entered a building and found themselves trapped as the inhabitants collapsed it on top of them. A supply convoy was ambushed by inhabitants using their primitive vehicles as weapons, ramming the Crithian transports before detonating massive amounts of chemical explosives. Status report, Jaltor demanded, as casualty numbers began arriving. Ground forces report increasing guerrilla activity, General Vexnar said, his voice uncertain. The inhabitants are not engaging in open combat. They are using hit-and-run tactics, traps, ambushes. They hide among their own civilian populations, making it difficult to target them effectively. Increase security around our positions, Jaltor ordered. Establish defensive perimeters. These are just the desperate actions of a defeated people. They will exhaust themselves quickly, but the attacks did not decrease. They intensified. Across the planet, the inhabitants struck at Crithian forces whenever opportunity presented itself. They used their knowledge of local terrain to devastating effect. They sacrificed themselves to destroy Crithian equipment. They refused to accept their obvious defeat. Jaltor studied the reports with growing confusion. This was not following the standard pattern. Where was the government delegation begging for mercy? Where were the military commanders ready to negotiate terms? Why were these primitive beings still fighting when they had no hope of victory? Sir, his communication officer said quietly, we have intercepted multiple broadcasts from the planet. The inhabitants are not calling for surrender. They are calling for resistance. Their leaders are ordering them to fight on regardless of cost. Madness, Jaltor said. Do they not understand they cannot win? We will simply bombard them from orbit if they refuse reason. Perhaps that is what we should do, General Vexnar suggested. Demonstrate our power conclusively. Jaltor considered this, but High Command wanted intact infrastructure, usable resources, a subjugated workforce. Orbital bombardment would make the planet far less valuable. These inhabitants would see reason soon enough. Every species did eventually. Continue ground operations, he decided. Increase force deployment. They will surrender within days. But deep in his command center, Jaltor felt something unfamiliar creeping into his thoughts. Not fear exactly, but uncertainty. These inhabitants should have given up by now. They possessed no advantages, no chance of victory, no reason for hope, yet still they fought. The commander did not yet know the name of the planet he had invaded. He did not know its inhabitants called themselves humans. He did not know that every other spacefaring civilization in the galaxy had marked this world with a simple warning that the Empire had never bothered to check. Earth, do not engage. He would learn soon enough what that warning meant. 3 days after the invasion began, Jaltor stood before a tactical display showing the entire planet. Red markers indicated Crithian-controlled zones. They covered less territory than he had expected. Much less. Report on ground operations, he commanded. General Vexnar stepped forward, his posture defensive. We control the landing zones and major infrastructure points. However, the inhabitants have evacuated most population centers. They are operating from distributed locations, making it difficult to locate their command structure. Difficult? Zhaltor turned to face him. We have orbital sensors that can detect individual life signs from space. How are primitives hiding from us? Well, Regative. They move through underground tunnels, sir. Their cities have extensive subterranean infrastructure. They also use natural cave systems, dense forests, and urban ruins to mask their heat signatures. Our forces have encountered organized resistance in 17 major cities. The inhabitants coordinate their attacks, despite having no centralized communication network we can detect. Zhaltor felt his frustration growing. We have fought 47 species. We have conquered worlds with far more advanced technology. Why are these primitives proving so difficult? The answer came from an unexpected source. A xenobiologist named Dr. Catherine had accompanied the invasion force to study the conquered species. She entered the command center with her analysis pad clutched in her claws. Commander, I have completed preliminary analysis of the target planet's biosphere. I need to report my findings immediately. What is it? Zhaltor asked impatiently. This world is a death world, sir. Perhaps the most extreme example I have encountered in my career. Zhaltor stared at her. Explain. Dr. Catherine activated her display, showing various life forms from the planet. The biodiversity here is extraordinary and terrifying. This planet has experienced multiple mass extinction events. Each time, life recovered and adapted to become more resilient. The current dominant species, these humans, evolved in an environment of constant danger. She showed images of Earth creatures. Massive predators with powerful jaws, venomous insects and reptiles, microscopic organisms that cause disease, plants that could kill with a touch. The humans evolved alongside all of this, she continued. They developed persistence hunting techniques that allowed them to chase prey until it died of exhaustion. They learned to consume a wider variety of foods than almost any other species. They adapted to survive in extreme temperatures, from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. Their immune systems are incredibly robust because they evolved fighting constant infections. Zhaltor dismissed this with a wave. Interesting but irrelevant. We have superior weapons. It is very relevant, Commander. Our troops are falling ill. Earth is filled with microorganisms our immune systems have never encountered. We also underestimated the planet's gravity. It is 0.98 standard, which exhausts our soldiers during extended operations. Meanwhile, the humans are adapted to this exact environment. They can run for hours. They can operate with minimal sleep. They can eat nearly anything organic. General Vexnar interrupted. Are you suggesting these primitives are winning because of biology? I am suggesting we made assumptions about their capability based solely on their technology level, Dr. Catherine replied. That was a mistake. As if to prove her point, alarms suddenly blared throughout the command ship. Ground forces under heavy attack in the city. Designated Sol, an officer announced. Multiple human units coordinating simultaneous strikes on our garrison. Zhaltor pulled up the tactical display for that location. His forces controlled a fortified position in the city center. They had heavy weapons, energy shields, armored vehicles. They should have been impregnable. But he watched in disbelief as human forces attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. They used captured Crithian weapons alongside their own primitive firearms. They employed vehicles packed with explosives as guided missiles. They attacked with suicidal determination, accepting horrific casualties to push forward. They are not retreating, General Vexnar said quietly. They are taking 90% casualties in some units, and the survivors continue fighting. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Crithian garrison had been overrun. Out of 500 soldiers, only a dozen escaped. The humans had lost thousands, but they had won. Zhaltor felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest. Order all ground forces to fortify their positions, he commanded. No more offensive operations until we understand what we are facing. Over the following weeks, the pattern repeated across the planet. Crithian forces found themselves besieged in their own bases. Human attacks came at any time, day or night. The inhabitants showed no mercy and expected none. They developed tactics specifically designed to counter Crithian advantages. They learned to avoid open combat, where superior firepower mattered. Instead, they attacked supply lines, isolated patrols, and vulnerable positions. More concerning, the humans were learning. Salvaged Crithian weapons began appearing in their hands. They studied captured equipment and developed countermeasures. Their technology level was rising rapidly as they adapted Imperial systems to their own use. In underground facilities hidden from orbital sensors, human engineers worked around the clock. They took apart Crithian energy weapons and built cruder versions using their own manufacturing techniques. They analyzed captured armor and developed bullets that could penetrate it. They studied the invaders' communications and learned to jam or intercept them. The humans proved terrifyingly quick learners. Jaltor received reports of a major human manufacturing complex operating beneath a mountain range. He ordered it destroyed from orbit. The strike went perfectly. The mountain was vaporized. 3 days later, intelligence confirmed the humans had simply moved their operation deeper underground and continued production. "They are like a disease," General Vexnar said during a strategy meeting. "Every time we eliminate one cell, 3 more appear. Then we will eliminate them all," Jaltor replied. But his voice lacked conviction. The truth was becoming clear. The Crithian Empire had invaded a world they did not understand. They had assumed primitives would be easy prey. They had not considered that humans had spent millions of years as both predator and prey, learning to survive against impossible odds. They had not realized that humanity's lack of advanced technology came from isolation, not inability. Now the humans had both their own ruthless determination and access to Imperial technology. "Commander," an officer interrupted. "New reports from the surface. The humans are not just fighting us. They are organizing their entire species for total war. Their factories are being converted to weapons production. They are training civilian populations in guerrilla tactics. They are preparing for a conflict lasting years or decades, if necessary." Jaltor absorbed this information. Every other species the Empire had conquered possessed survival instincts. When defeat became certain, they surrendered to preserve their lives and civilization. These humans seemed to possess no such instinct. They would rather die fighting than accept subjugation. "Perhaps we should reconsider this operation," Dr. Kethrin suggested quietly. "Withdraw while we still can, and mark this world as unsuitable for conquest." "Withdraw?" General Vexnar was outraged. "The Empire does not withdraw. We have never failed to conquer a target world." But even as he said it, everyone in the command center knew the truth. They were not winning this war. At best, they were locked in a bloody stalemate with an enemy that refused to accept reality. An enemy that was learning to fight back more effectively with every passing day. An enemy that called themselves human. 4 months after the invasion began, Commander Jaltor barely recognized the tactical situation. What should have been a quick conquest had become a nightmare. His fleet remained in orbit, but ground forces were trapped in isolated strongholds across the planet. Resupply missions faced constant attack. Casualties mounted daily. Worse, the Crithian soldiers were afraid. "We need reinforcements," General Vexnar stated during the morning briefing. "Our troops are exhausted. Morale is collapsing." Yesterday, an entire platoon surrendered rather than face another human assault. Jaltor felt his authority crumbling. Crithian soldiers did not surrender. They were elite warriors who had conquered nearly 50 worlds. Yet here they were, broken by primitives who should not have lasted a week. "What is the status of the human resistance?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. The intelligence officer brought up a projection. "The humans have fully adapted to warfare against us. Commander, they have established a unified command structure despite our efforts to disrupt their communications. They manufacture hybrid weapons, combining their technology with ours. Most concerning, they have captured several of our ships and are attempting to reverse engineer the propulsion systems. How is that possible? Those systems should be beyond their understanding. The humans learn remarkably fast, sir. They also appear to have no ethical restrictions on experimentation. They will try anything, accept any risk, to gain advantage. Jaltor thought about the reports crossing his desk. Human soldiers injecting themselves with combat drugs that increased aggression but shortened their lifespan. Human engineers testing captured reactors in populated areas, accepting catastrophic accidents as the cost of learning. Human commanders ordering suicidal attacks to capture a single piece of Crithian technology. They were insane, brilliant, adaptive, and completely insane. Commander, we have a prisoner transport arriving from the surface, an officer announced. One of our patrols captured a human commander. He has been identified as a senior officer in their resistance network. Jaltor straightened. Bring him to the interrogation chamber. Perhaps we can finally extract useful intelligence. The human was escorted in by 4 guards. He was injured, his primitive uniform torn and bloody, but he walked with his head high, showing no fear. Jaltor studied him carefully. The human was smaller than a Crithian, built lighter, seemingly fragile, yet his eyes held complete defiance. You are a commander in the human military? Jaltor asked, through the translation device. Colonel David Chen, United Earth Defense Force, the human replied. Name, rank, service number is all you will get from me. You do not understand your position, Jaltor said. Your world has lost. We control your skies, we have destroyed your infrastructure, and we can exterminate your entire species from orbit. Yet, you continue this pointless resistance. Why? Colonel Chen smiled. And there was something terrifying in that expression. Because we are human. Because this is Earth. Because we do not surrender our home to anyone, regardless of the odds. That is madness. You are sacrificing millions for a war you cannot win. We will win, Chen said simply. You just do not understand that yet. Jaltor leaned forward. Explain. You came to our world thinking we were primitives, easy prey. You thought superior technology meant certain victory, but you forgot to study what we are. Humans evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. We survived ice ages, supervolcanoes, pandemic diseases, and apex predators that hunted us as food. We did not become the dominant species on Earth because we were the strongest or fastest or most venomous. We became dominant because we never, ever stop. We adapt. We learn. We endure. And we remember every species that tried to make us prey. The human's voice was calm, almost conversational, which made his words more chilling. You have superior ships and weapons, Chen continued. For now. But we are already building our own versions. We are learning your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses. In another year, we will match you. In 2 years, we will surpass you. Because that is what humans do. We take what others create and make it better. We have been doing it for 10,000 years. Jaltor wanted to dismiss this as bravado. But he could not. Because everything the human said was already coming true. Your empire has conquered 47 species, Chen said. I wonder how many of them you are still occupying. How much of your military is tied down maintaining control over resentful populations? And now you have picked a fight with a species that will never stop resisting. How long before those other conquered worlds see what is happening here and decide they can fight back too? Before Jaltor could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Multiple human vessels launching from the planet's surface, an officer announced in disbelief. They are attempting to reach orbital altitude. Destroy them, Jaltor commanded. Sir. They are not military vessels. They are civilian spacecraft modified with our captured weapons. They are carrying massive explosive payloads. They are suicide attacks. Jaltor watched in horror as a dozen human ships rocketed toward his fleet. His warships destroyed most of them, but 3 got through. They crashed into Crithian vessels, deliberately, detonating with enough force to cripple 2 cruisers and destroy a destroyer entirely. "They are ramming us," General Vexnar whispered. "They are willing to die just to damage us." Colonel Chen laughed. "Did you think the kamikazes were just ancient history? We remember every tactic that ever worked, and we are willing to use them all." Colonel Chen laughed. "We remember every tactic that ever worked, Taljan." Jaltor had the human taken back to his cell. But he could not shake the encounter. He had seen fanaticism before in conquered species. This was different. The humans were not fanatics. They were calculators. They accepted their casualties as the necessary cost of winning, and they were winning. The evidence mounted daily. A human counteroffensive retook the city of New York, inflicting severe casualties on the Crithian garrison. Human forces captured an Imperial supply depot intact, gaining access to weapons, armor, and technical data. Human engineers successfully activated a captured Crithian shuttle and flew it, proving they could operate Imperial technology. "We need to request reinforcements from High Command," General Vexnar said during an emergency meeting. Zaltor knew what that meant. Admitting failure, asking for help to conquer primitives. His career would be over. But staying here meant watching his fleet slowly bleed out. "Send the request," he finally agreed. But before the message could be transmitted, long-range sensors detected something alarming. A Crithian transport, attempting to leave the system, had been destroyed. Not by human forces from the planet, but by orbital defenses the humans had somehow established. "How did they get weapons platforms into space?" Jaltor demanded. "They repurposed their own space stations, Commander. They stripped them of everything unnecessary and mounted captured Crithian weapons on them. The platforms have minimal capability, but there are dozens of them, and they are in defensive positions around the planet." The humans had turned their own orbital infrastructure into a weapons network. They had locked the Crithian fleet in place, unable to leave without running a gauntlet of fire. The hunters had become the hunted. Jaltor stood before the tactical display and finally admitted the truth to himself. The Crithian Empire had made a catastrophic mistake. They had attacked a sleeping predator and assumed it would remain helpless. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous than they ever imagined. The humans were not fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting to win. And they were succeeding. 6 months into the invasion, the message finally arrived from Crithian High Command. Jaltor read it 3 times, hoping he had misunderstood. But the words remained the same. "Immediate withdrawal authorized. Fleet to return to Imperial space. Ground forces to evacuate all positions. Priority override Alpha 9. General Vex Nar stood beside him, reading over his shoulder. "They are ordering us to retreat." "No," Jaltor said quietly. "They are ordering us to run." Attached to the orders was a data file marked with the highest security classification. Jaltor opened it and felt his blood turn cold. Inside was information that should have been provided before the invasion began. Information that would have prevented this entire disaster. The file contained historical records from the Galactic Council, the coalition of spacefaring species that maintained order in this sector. Zaltor had always dismissed them as weak, afraid to use their power properly. Now he understood that their caution was actually wisdom. The records were clear. 23,000 years ago, an advanced species called the progenitors had explored this region of space. They catalogued every world and every intelligent species. For most civilizations, they left standard observations. But for one planet, they left a different kind of record. Species designation. Human. Planet designation. Earth. Classification. Apex Predator Development World. Recommendation. Quarantine. Do not engage. The report continued with details that made Jaltor's stomach turn. The progenitors had studied Earth extensively. They documented how humans had evolved as pursuit predators, capable of chasing prey to exhaustion over days. They noted human tool use, problem-solving ability, and social cooperation. They observed how humans waged war against each other with escalating sophistication. The progenitors' final conclusion was simple. Humanity would eventually develop space travel. When that happened, they would either become the greatest force for cooperation in the galaxy, or its most dangerous conqueror. The only certainty was that no one should provoke them before they were ready to join galactic civilization peacefully. The Galactic Council had honored that warning for over 20,000 years. They monitored Earth from a distance. They prevented other species from making contact. They waited for humanity to reach for the stars on their own terms. And the Crithian Empire, in its arrogance, had ignored all of it. The Council knew, General Vexnar said, his voice hollow. They knew what would happen if someone attacked Earth, and they tried to prevent exactly this. Jaltor closed the file. Prepare evacuation procedures. We are leaving. But even as he gave the order, he knew it was too late. The humans had not just defended their planet. They had learned. They had adapted. And now, they had Crithian technology. Commander, an officer interrupted. We have a problem. Multiple human military units have surrounded our ground positions. They are demanding our surrender. Tell them we are withdrawing, Jaltor ordered. We are leaving their world. Sir, they are not offering us safe passage. They want unconditional surrender of all ground forces and equipment. The audacity was stunning. The humans were not content to simply drive the invaders away. They wanted complete victory. They wanted every piece of Crithian technology they could capture. They wanted prisoners who could teach them even more. Begin orbital evacuation immediately, Jaltor commanded. Use shuttles to extract our troops. Accept that we will lose equipment. But save the soldiers. The evacuation became a chaotic nightmare. Human forces attacked every landing zone. They targeted shuttles with captured weapons and their own modified missiles. They made the Crithians pay in blood for every soldier extracted. By the time the last ground forces lifted off, the Empire had lost nearly 40% of the invasion force. But worse news was coming. Commander, sensors detect human spacecraft launching from the planet, the tactical officer reported. They are not attacking us. They appear to be heading deeper into the system. Jaltor pulled up the display. A dozen crude spacecraft, clearly built by combining human and Crithian technology, were moving away from Earth. They were slow and clumsy compared to Imperial vessels, but they were functioning faster than light-capable ships. They have achieved FTL travel, Dr. Catherine said from her station. They have gone from a pre-FTL civilization to a spacefaring species in 6 months. That is unprecedented. Where are they going? General Vexnar asked. The answer came quickly. The human ships were heading to nearby star systems where the Crithian Empire maintained occupation forces. They were heading to worlds the Empire had conquered and still controlled. Jaltor understood immediately. The humans were not satisfied with defending Earth. They were taking the fight to the Empire itself. And they were doing something no other species had done. They were liberating the Empire's other conquests. Over the following weeks, reports flooded in from across the sector. Human ships arrived at occupied worlds and made contact with the enslaved populations. They offered weapons, technology, and training. They showed other species that the mighty Crithian Empire could be defeated. They sparked rebellions on a dozen worlds simultaneously. The Empire's military was stretched impossibly thin. Forces had to be recalled from frontier regions to suppress uprisings. But every time they crushed one rebellion, 2 more erupted. The humans were not fighting alone anymore. They had become the spark that ignited resistance across the sector. We need to sue for peace, General Vexnar said during an emergency command meeting. Before this spreads further. Peace? Jaltor looked at him. The humans will not accept peace. They will accept nothing less than complete victory. They are not defending anymore. They are conquering. It was true. Human forces moved from system to system, always offering the same deal to conquered species. Join us. Fight with us. Together we can break the empire that enslaved you all." And species after species accepted. Within a year of the initial invasion, the Crythian Empire faced organized resistance on 23 worlds. Their economy was collapsing under the strain of maintaining military operations across such a wide front. Soldiers were deserting. Officers were questioning orders. The empire that had seemed invincible was crumbling. And at the center of it all was Earth, the planet they should never have touched. Jaltor sat in his quarters, reviewing the tactical displays one final time. The fleet that had proudly invaded Earth was gone. Some ships had been destroyed in combat. Others had been recalled to defend Imperial territory. His once mighty armada was scattered and broken. He thought about the human prisoner, Colonel Chen. The man had told him exactly what would happen, and Jaltor had dismissed it as impossible boasting. But humans did not boast. They simply stated facts and then made them true through sheer determination. The final report arrived from High Command. The Emperor himself had issued new orders. All military operations against Earth were permanently suspended. The planet was to be marked as forbidden territory. Any ship that approached without explicit permission would be destroyed by Imperial forces themselves. It was a complete reversal. The Empire had gone from invading Earth to protecting it from anyone else making the same mistake. Because now, they understood what the Galactic Council had known for 20,000 years. Humanity was not a species you wanted as an enemy. They were persistence itself given form. They were adaptation and learning and endless determination wrapped in fragile flesh. They were the product of a death world that had tried to kill them for millions of years and failed. And now they had the stars. Zaltor composed his final report. He detailed every mistake, every miscalculation, every assumption that had led to disaster. He ended with a single recommendation. The Crythian Empire must never again underestimate an opponent based solely on their technology level. The humans of Earth have proven that determination, adaptability, and the will to never surrender can overcome any technological advantage. We invaded their world, expecting easy conquest. Instead, we awakened a sleeping giant. This failure will define the Empire's future. We can only hope the damage can be contained. He sent the report and then sat back, staring at the image of Earth on his display. Such a beautiful world. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked so peaceful from space, but Jaltor knew the truth now. Earth was not peaceful. It was the forge that had created humanity. And the Crythian Empire had learned what happened when you tried to break something forged in that particular fire. You got burned. 1 year after the failed invasion, Ambassador Sarah Kim stood before the Galactic Council and felt the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her. She was the first human to ever address this ancient assembly. The chamber was vast, designed to accommodate dozens of species, each with their own unique biology. Some breathed oxygen like her. Others required specialized environments, maintained by force fields. The council leader, a being called High Arbiter Velshan, spoke through the translation system. Ambassador Kim, humanity has been brought before this council to answer for actions taken in the past standard year. Your species has violated numerous galactic treaties, disrupted established political boundaries, and incited rebellion across multiple systems. Sarah stood straight, wearing the simple blue uniform of Earth's new diplomatic corps. She had fought in the resistance during the invasion. She had lost friends, family, and nearly her own life. But that was behind her now. Today, she spoke for all of humanity. High Arbiter, with respect, my people did not start this conflict. We were invaded without warning or provocation. We were attacked by an empire that assumed we would be easy prey. We defended our world with the only weapons we had: determination, ingenuity, and the absolute refusal to accept subjugation. A Crythian representative, not Jaltor but someone equally bitter, rose to speak. Humanity went far beyond defense. You attacked our forces across multiple systems. You armed rebellions on worlds that were lawfully under Imperial control. You destabilized an entire sector. Sarah turned to face the Crithian. You enslaved those worlds. You conquered species that could not defend themselves and exploited them for profit. When we offered them the chance to be free, they chose freedom. That says more about your empire than it does about humanity. The council chamber erupted in argument. Species that had been conquered by the Crithians supported humanity's actions. Species that maintained empires of their own condemned them. Species that valued order above all else feared what humanity represented. High Arbiter Velshan called for silence. Ambassador Kim, you raise a difficult question. The Galactic Council has long maintained a policy of non-interference. We allowed the Crithian Empire to expand because they followed certain rules. They did not engage in genocide. They allowed conquered species to maintain their cultures. By our standards, their actions were acceptable. Your standards allowed slavery to continue as long as it was polite, Sarah replied. Her voice was calm but firm. Humanity rejects those standards. You reject the foundation of galactic civilization itself. Another council member stated. For 50,000 years, we have maintained order through negotiation and compromise. Strong species are allowed to expand as long as they observe basic protocols. This prevents total warfare. It also prevents justice. Sarah said, High Arbiter, I want to ask you a question. Why was Earth quarantined? And the chamber went silent. Velshan's alien features were difficult to read, but Sarah sensed discomfort. That is ancient history. Ambassador, it is current reality, Sarah pressed. The progenitors marked Earth as a world that should not be contacted. The Council enforced that quarantine for over 20,000 years. Why? Because humanity was dangerous, Velshan admitted. Your evolutionary path created a species with concerning traits. Extreme persistence, rapid adaptation, and a tendency toward both cooperation and conflict on a scale rarely seen. The progenitors believed humanity needed to develop space travel independently, to mature, before joining galactic society. You isolated us to protect yourselves, Sarah said. You knew what we were capable of, and you were afraid. But you told the rest of the galaxy to leave us alone. The Crithian Empire ignored that warning, and now everyone sees the consequences. She activated a holographic display showing the current political situation. 23 former Crithian-controlled worlds had declared independence. 14 had formed a new coalition with Earth as a founding member. The Crithian Empire had lost nearly a third of its territory. This is what happens when you pick a fight with Earth, Sarah continued. We do not lose. We do not give up. We fight with everything we have, and we learn from every encounter. The Crithians learned this lesson. I suggest the rest of the galaxy takes note. Are you threatening this council? A delegate demanded. No, Sarah replied. I am stating facts. Humanity is now a spacefaring civilization. We have faster-than-light travel, advanced weapons, and the will to use them. We cannot be put back in quarantine. We cannot be ignored. The galaxy must decide how it wants to interact with us, but it will be on terms of mutual respect, not from a position of superiority. High Arbiter Velshan was quiet for a long moment. Ambassador, what exactly does humanity want? We want what we have always wanted. Freedom to determine our own future. Recognition as equals in galactic civilization. And we want an end to the kind of exploitation the Crithian Empire represented. If that means helping other species break their chains, then yes, we will do that. You want to remake galactic society according to human values, Velshan said. We want to be part of a society worth belonging to, Sarah corrected. The current system failed us. It failed every species the Crithians conquered. It will continue to fail until someone has the courage to say enough. The council deliberated for hours. Sarah stood patiently, knowing that Earth's future was being decided. But she also knew humanity would survive, regardless of this decision. They had proven they could stand alone if necessary. Finally, High Arbiter Velshan announced the Council's decision. The Galactic Council recognizes Earth as a sovereign member state. Humanity will be granted full rights and responsibilities within galactic civilization. Furthermore, the Council will establish new protocols regarding the treatment of conquered populations. The Krithian Empire will be required to grant autonomy to any species requesting independence. It was not everything Sarah had hoped for, but it was a beginning. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had forced that change. After the session ended, Velshan approached Sarah privately. You realize, many species fear what humanity represents. You are aggressive, expansionist, and unpredictable by our standards. By your standards, we are also your newest members, and hopefully your future partners, Sarah replied. Humans can be fierce when threatened, but we can also be loyal allies. The species we helped liberate will testify to that. We kept our promises to them. Our Gever. We kept our promises to them. What will humanity do now? Velshan asked. You have your freedom. You have recognition. What comes next? Sarah looked out at the vast chamber, thinking about Earth and all the humans working to build a new future among the stars. We explore. We learn. We meet other species as equals and friends. And if someone threatens what we have built, we defend it with everything we are. That is what humans do. That is who we are. She paused, then added, the galaxy tried to keep us isolated, to protect itself from what we might become. But we are here now. The question is not what humanity will do. The question is what kind of galaxy we will help create together. Far across the sector, on a Krithian world, former Commander Zhaltor received news of the Council's decision. He was no longer a commander. His rank had been stripped after the disaster at Earth. He now worked as an instructor, teaching young Krithian officers about the realities of warfare. His students were eager, confident, certain of their superiority. They reminded him of his younger self, so Zhaltor told them about Earth. He showed them recordings of human resistance fighters who charged into certain death to buy their comrades time. He showed them human engineers who learned to operate Krithian technology in weeks. He showed them human spacecraft built from salvaged parts and sheer determination. Never underestimate an opponent because they lack your technology, he told his students. Never assume primitives will be easy prey. And never, ever attack Earth. That is a lesson the Empire learned at terrible cost. Some species survive through strength, some through speed, some through venom, or armor, or numbers. Humans survive through something more dangerous than any of those. They survive through pure, stubborn refusal to die. That makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. His students listened, and Zhaltor hoped they would remember. The Empire had paid in blood for its arrogance. Perhaps future generations would be wiser. On Earth, people celebrated their victory and mourned their losses. Cities were rebuilt. Memorials were erected for the millions who died, defending their home. But humanity also looked outward with new understanding. They were not alone in the universe. They had allies now, species who fought beside them for freedom. They had enemies who had learned to respect them, and they had an entire galaxy to explore. The invasion had been meant to conquer Earth. Instead, it had freed humanity from isolation and announced to the galaxy that humans were here to stay. The Krithians had launched a surprise attack thinking Earth was just another primitive world. They forgot the planet was called Earth. They forgot that humans earned their place as apex predators on a death world. They forgot that some species cannot be conquered because they simply refuse to accept defeat. And they paid the ultimate price for that mistake. Not in simple military defeat, but in the complete transformation of the galactic order they had helped maintain. The invasion of Earth did not end with humanity's victory. It ended with the galaxy itself changed forever. The sleeping beast had awakened, and the stars would never be the same. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.